science, namely that antidepressants often do not do what they promise and are in fact causing harm to many.
Dr. Steve Hotze is suing over Obamacare's employer mandate.
It's time for a wellness revolution. Brought to you by Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Honest discussion on maintaining health and wellness naturally to enjoy a better quality of life.
He's the doctor fighting to let you keep your doctor.
Now, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Good afternoon, everyone out there. This is Stacey Banfield with Dr. Stephen Hotze, founder of the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. You are listening to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. And if you have any questions for Dr. Hotze today, then you can give us a call. Live in studio at 713-212-5950. That's 713-212-5950. And we are also on Facebook Live, so you can go to Facebook, type in Hotze Health. That's Hotze Health. You can watch the show live. And, of course, we've got our wonderful podcasts as a new option for people. So you can go to hotzepodcast.com. That's HOTZE podcast.com. You can download all of our radio programs. Listen to them day or night, convenience of your own home, in the gym, wherever. So convenient. Isn't that right, Dr. Hotze?
It is.
Yeah, it's a great offering for people, and a lot of people are using them too, and so we do appreciate that.
If I weren't doing the podcast, I'd listen to them.
That's right. Exactly. That's a very good point, Dr. Hotze. So how are you today?
I'm doing terrific. It is a great day, and thanks.
It is.
Thank you, Stacey, and thank each one of you for joining us today on Wellness Revolution. I believe that every person needs to have a health coach. You need a doctor. You need a team of professionals who will coach you onto a path of health and wellness naturally so that you enjoy a better quality of life without having to resort to pharmaceutical drugs. We've been talking about in recent programs about low thyroid condition and how it was first discovered back in England in the 1880s by the Clinical Society of London that had done a clinical study of 109 individuals that had died with very similar symptoms similar to people that were born and had cretinism. Cretinism is caused by a low thyroid condition. It was unknown at that time, but people that didn't have enough thyroid when they were born young didn't develop fully, emotionally, mentally. They had enlarged tongues, big heads, oftentimes had a goiter, which is an enlarged thyroid. And what they found in these adults who had done well throughout their life, at a certain point in their life, they began to exhibit the very same signs and symptoms that these cretinoid children had. And they couldn't understand what was causing the problem, so they decided to set up a committee to study it. And what they found in these individuals is that they had these classical symptoms that we know now are caused by low thyroid, but they had certain classical symptoms: fatigue, they had difficulty with weight, they had cold body temperatures, they couldn't think clearly, they had depressed moods or mood swings, irregular menstrual cycles. It was 6-to-1 women to men in the study who had this problem, very much like we see here in our office. And they had joint muscle aches and pain, dysfunctional bowels. They were puffy, pale, their hair fell out. Oftentimes they'd have recurrent infections. They just didn't do well, and then they subsequently die. And on autopsy, they found that these women had abnormal thyroid glands. And they didn't know what the thyroid gland did then. They thought, well, maybe it secretes something that does something to the body on the nervous system. And, you know, if the thyroid's not right, that affects the nervous system. So they called the disorder myxedema, which means swelling due to mucin, really a gelatinous material that is in the skin. They all had this, and so it was perplexing to them. They tried to treat them with various stimulants, and nothing worked, and the people would die. So a doctor, when they made their presentation to the Clinical Society of London in 1888 and tried these various remedies that didn't work, a doctor by the name of Richard Murray in 1892 started to inject his patients with thyroid derived from sheep gland. And his patients did well. First they thought, well, this is crazy. This guy's a quack, you know. But the patients got well, and other doctors began to adopt this. And soon they learned they could dry the sheep thyroid gland and they could give incremental doses, and the patients did well. As a matter of fact, the first patient that Dr. Murray treated in 1892 lived, she was 46, lived to be 74, and died in 1921. So he had turned her situation around. And over time, there were physicians across the world that began to adopt a method of, and this is the only method they had back then, there weren't blood tests, taking a good clinical history of the patient's symptoms, determining their signs of their symptoms on physical examination, which included maybe hair loss in women, puffy skin, this thick edematous skin that had mucin in it, enlarged tongue, loss of the lateral third of the eyebrows, the nails were brittle and ridged.
And that's still the best way to diagnose hypothyroidism, isn't it?
If somebody comes in with these symptoms, they got low thyroid. So they would empirically treat these patients with desiccated or dried thyroid gland in incremental doses and increase it. And if the patients improved and got well, then that was diagnostic, that their problem was low thyroid. Then later in the 20th century, 1960 or so, they came out with blood tests, and doctors started, rather than listening to the patient's clinical symptoms, began to focus strictly on blood tests, which turned out to be normal in 95% of the patients, because that's how the lab defines what's normal. And so subsequently, people were told who had low thyroid condition and low thyroid symptoms that their thyroid was normal and they didn't need that, and they'd put them on a various regimen of pharmaceutical drugs trying to treat the symptoms. You know, they give them antidepressants, they give them anti-anxiety medication, sleep medication, joint medication, anti-inflammatories, a whole host of medication. And of course, the people were overweight. They might get pre-diabetic or high blood pressure. Next thing you know, they're on a bunch of medication, and they're just not doing well. So back in let's see what year it would have been, about 92, a friend of mine who was a physician told me that I had women in my practice that had low thyroid condition, and recommended that I begin to evaluate them based upon their clinical symptoms, and also to look to see if they had antibodies to their thyroid gland. And sure enough, I found in about 30% of the women antibodies to their thyroid gland. That means their immune system's attacking the thyroid. And I began to treat them clinically. So I believe that anybody that has the clinical signs of low thyroid ought to have a therapeutic trial of desiccated thyroid medication, natural thyroid, see if they improve. And if they do, then that's diagnostic, rather than putting them on a bunch of pharmaceutical drugs, which are toxins in of themselves and have a host of side effects. Put on something as natural as thyroid and see how they do. And that absolutely was a change in our practice here. I was doing allergy and treating for yeast and using vitamins and a good eating program, but we started to add thyroid to our regimen, and oh my goodness, the results that we had were so positive and beneficial that that's really been a backbone of the Hotze Health and Wellness Center since that time. And I'm going to talk to you when we come back. I want to tell you a story about one of our guests so you can understand how this plays out in real life. Her name is Peggy, and I want you to listen up because I'm going to talk about Peggy's story.
And out there, if you've been listening to this and listening to Dr. Hotze talk about these symptoms and think that might be you, there's an easy way to find out if that could possibly be your case. You can go to our website, HotzeHWC.com. That's HOTZE, HWC.com, and take our symptom checker. And that will give you a better idea of whether or not you might have low thyroid. Of course, you can give our office a call at 281-698-8698 for more information. That's 281-698-8698. You're listening to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. Please stay tuned.
Why walk amongst the living sick when you can join a wellness revolution? Here's Dr. Hotze.
Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. I'm Stacey Banfield here with Dr. Stephen Hotze. And if you want to do a 180 and take charge of your health today, then give us a call at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. We'll also be more than happy to send you a complimentary copy of Dr. Hotze's book. Well, you know what? We've been talking about hypothyroidism quite a bit. So let's make that Hypothyroidism, Health and Happiness your second book. Here's Dr. Hotze, and there it is. If you're on Facebook, there's the cover.
Listen up. I'm going to tell you a story, read you a story, really, And it's a chapter in my book, Hypothyroidism, Health and Happiness, and it's about Peggy. Now, Peggy told me this, that she had whispered a prayer to God, saying, "Dear God, if my life is going to be like this, then I want a short life." She told me the only future she could envision was a slippery downhill trail into a canyon, shrouded with fogs. All the happier years she had faded in her memory. She had bone-throbbing exhaustion, unrelenting joint pain. She complained of brain fog, weight gain, depressed moods, and insomnia, which had really been her daily existence and had been worsening over the past several years. Now, she told me, her symptoms seemed unbearable. She's a real estate agent, and while she was driving to meet her next client, she reflected on what had caused her to have such a dismal outlook on the future, and she had wondered, how's it come to this? She had told me she had a terrific husband, a wonderful son, she had a successful real estate career, but her mind and her body were falling apart at the seams. She was just sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. Now, interestingly enough, as a teenager, Peggy had been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, a low thyroid condition, which had been caused by autoimmune thyroiditis. She made antibodies to her thyroid gland, and she had been prescribed synthetic thyroid, Synthroid, since that time. Unfortunately, it had not provided her with any resolution of her hypothyroid symptoms. Her downhill slide really began after her hysterectomy at age 38. Now, like many women, she was given Premarin. That's a horse estrogen derived from. Her doctor, she said, disinterestedly listened to her complaints and then said with authority, "Peggy, look, you've been on the same dose of thyroid for years and your blood tests have always been normal range. If you're taking your medication as I've instructed you to do, this time it will be no different. Your symptoms are not due to an inadequate thyroid dose." Now, during her follow-up visit, Peggy's physician arrogantly informed her this: "Your symptoms can't be due to your thyroid because your blood work is normal, just as I told you." So just as he had told thousands of female patients before, he uttered his standard line, confidently asserting, "We find that most women like you benefit from an anti-depressant." Does that sound familiar? Then he just shook his head from side to side as if he were thinking, these poor women just can't keep it together. Peggy countered. She said, "I'm not depressed. I've got a great marriage. I got a successful career. I just don't feel well." Standing erect in his starched white coat with the stethoscope dangling around his neck, her doctor sternly addressed her. "You may think you're not depressed, but all your symptoms are classic for depression. That's why you need an antidepressant." Shrugging her shoulders, her doctor told her in an unsympathetic tone, "You just need to learn to live with it like other women in my practice." Peggy told me that she felt abandoned and deserted and thought, doesn't anybody understand? She was stunned by his comments and his dismissive attitude and thought to herself, he must think I'm a hypochondriac. Peggy began to doubt herself. Maybe I'm having a mental problem. My doctor wouldn't give me a psychiatric drug if he didn't think there was something wrong with me mentally. And what can be described that followed was a medical merry-go-round. Only there was really nothing merry about it. With no other alternative solution known to her, Peggy began taking her antidepressant, but she found that she felt worse. She made another appointment to discuss her further downward spiral with her doctor. At the visit, the doctor smugly told her, "This proves you need an antidepressant. We just need to make some adjustments of the dose." After increasing her dose, he sent her away. And as you'd expect, there was no improvement. There were more doctor visits. There were different antidepressants, combinations of antidepressants. Now, I don't have to tell you that none of these drugs resolved Peggy's symptoms or she wouldn't come to see me. And worse, they created a whole new set of symptoms for which there were more drugs. There were always more drugs. Her depression worsened and was accompanied with extreme fatigue. Her muscles and joints throughout her whole body ached. At the side effect of her pharmaceutical cocktail, she developed high blood pressure and heart palpitations, for which, of course, she was treated with more prescription drugs. She began to be plagued with recurrent sinus infections and took repeated courses of antibiotics to treat them. Her health and her life were deteriorating. It was as if she were seeing the world through a fog. Her sense of humor was gone. She began detaching herself from her friends. After describing these symptoms to her physician, she was given another diagnosis. She had attention deficit disorder, so he prescribed Adderall, which was added to an increasing long list of drugs. Now, does this sound familiar? Adderall is an amphetamine. You might call it an upper. One of the side effects is insomnia, which she began to experience, so sleep medication was soon added to her list of drugs. Despite constant adjustments to every other prescription she was taking, her thyroid medication remained unchanged. Every physician who reviewed her thyroid blood work said, everything looks normal. Ironically, Peggy couldn't remember the last time that she had felt normal. She'd seen the best doctors, numerous specialists, gynecologists, endocrinologists, internists, rheumatologists, psychologists, and psychiatrists, and many more. None of them could tell her why she was having her symptoms. All they could offer her were more prescription drugs. And as you can imagine, she felt hopeless and lost faith in her physicians. In spite of this serious and debilitating decline in her health, she still managed her real estate business. She took naps between clients and scheduled all of her appointments in the morning to avoid the inevitable crash of afternoon fatigue. She did this because her physicians told her that this is what happened to women as they aged. They echoed her first doctor and told her that she would just have to learn to live with it. Have any of you ever experienced this with your doctors? So, she heard about the Hotze Health Wellness Center. And when she came in, she said, "You are my last resort." She was literally at the end of her rope. And after listening to her describe her health issues, we validated her symptoms, affirmed her concerns, and told her we were glad to have the opportunity to partner with her in her quest to restore her health. Remember, I told you, every patient needs a health coach, a doctor, and a group of staff professionals who will coach you onto a path to health and wellness naturally so you can enjoy a better quality of life. She saw Dr. David Sheridan here, and Peggy showed him that she was on 9 different pharmaceutical drugs besides her synthetic thyroid. This was a cascade of pharmaceutical drugs, much like the Niagara Fall. And it started with synthetic thyroid medication. But despite taking it, Peggy began to have all the symptoms of low thyroid. It continued to have all the symptoms of low thyroid. You know, this is the story we hear from most of the guests who have been on synthetic thyroid drugs. And we've seen thousands. They're on Synthroid, Levothyroid, Levoxyl. And the reason is easily explained because these synthetic thyroid medications don't even contain the active thyroid hormone. They only contain T4, the prohormone, and don't contain the active thyroid hormone T3. When we come back, we're going to discuss what we recommended for Peggy and how she responded.
And maybe Peggy's story is your story. I wish we could say that she's the only one that suffered like that, but we get that all the time here at the Hotze Health Wellness Center. We know that there are people out there who are suffering like Peggy. So if you want to get more information about doing something about it, taking charge of your health, doing that 180, then give us a call today at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. You are listening to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. Please stay tuned.
Now back to Wellness Revolution, your 100% organic, farm-raised, grass-fed, gluten-free, cage-free, non-GMO radio show. Here's Dr. Hotze.
Welcome back to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. This is Stacey Banfield here with Dr. Stephen Hotze. And if you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, then know there is a natural way to address your health issues. You can give us a call at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. 8698. Just remember, we are on Facebook Live, so you can go to Hotze Health on Facebook, type in Hotze Health. You can watch the program, and also we do have those podcasts that you can download. All you have to do is go to hotzepodcast.com. That's Hotze podcast.com. Here's Dr. Hotze.
Thanks, Stacy, and thank each one of you for joining us today. Remember, we believe that you need a health coach. You need a physician and a staff of professionals who'll coach you onto a path of health and wellness naturally, so you enjoy a better quality of life as you age. Who doesn't want to do that? Without using or resorting to pharmaceutical drugs to treat your various symptoms of aging. As we age, inevitably our hormone levels decline. And those hormones are what keep the cells generating energy. And you want to make sure you have good hormonal replenishment, replenish your hormones and balance them out. And this is what Peggy's problem was. Peggy, who I talked about in the last section, was a realtor who had been diagnosed as a young girl with hypothyroidism due to autoimmune thyroiditis. She made antibodies to her thyroid gland. And when she had a hysterectomy at 38, put her on Premarin, which is horse estrogen, which compounded the problem. That adversely affects the body's ability to properly utilize thyroid hormones because it causes the liver to produce a thyroid binding globulin. And she had a dramatic decline in her health. So she had no energy. She couldn't think clearly. She couldn't sleep. She ached all over. She had poor bowel function. She was recurrently sick and on antibiotics. And she was going downhill, and she saw her doctor, and her doctor said, "Your thyroid level's still normal. I think you're depressed." And he started putting her on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. She saw a plethora of doctors, all of whom prescribed medications. And after she heard about us from a friend, she came to us and said, "You're my last resort." We've heard that so many times. You're my last resort.
We have.
If you all can't help me, then I can't be helped. So she saw Dr. Sheridan here, and she had been she was on synthetic thyroid and 9 other pharmaceutical drugs to treat her various symptoms.
9.
9.
That's a pretty high
including
number.
Uppers and downers. And all around her, she was on a pot full of medication, which are toxic in and of themselves. Remember, drugs are toxins. They have to be detoxified by the liver. We already have a toxic load just due to the environmental toxins that we come in contact with and what we eat, breathe, drink, and slather on our body. So we've got all these toxins. The toxins adversely affect our cells' ability to produce energy. And that causes your symptoms that can adversely affect and disrupt your hormone production and utilization. And so now you're toxic, and the doctor just adds more toxins to your system in the form of drugs, and you get sicker quicker and don't do well. That's the way Peggy came into the office. And so Dr. Sheridan listened to her tell her story. And she had all the classical symptoms of low thyroid, and she was on a synthetic thyroid preparation. We've had thousands of individuals come in on synthetic thyroid and say, "Doc, I'm taking this medication. My doctor, even on the blood test, it said I was low thyroid," which only happens about 5% of the time. "And I don't feel any better. I still have all the symptoms of low thyroid, but the doctor says my thyroid tests are normal, so it can't be the thyroid. It hasn't been all these drugs." Well, that's what had happened to Peggy. So Dr. Sheridan made an adjustment. He switched her from synthetic thyroid hormone to natural desiccated thyroid hormone, natural thyroid, which contains not only the inactive but the active thyroid hormone. And it helps the cells begin to generate energy because you have to have thyroid in your cells for your power plants to produce optimal amount of energy. So put her on that, got her off the Premarin she'd been on, put her on natural progesterone, natural bias, supported the adrenal gland, got her on some vitamins and minerals to help her detoxify herself, got her on a good healthy eating program. And lo and behold, Peggy's health was restored. And she has done remarkable. As a matter of fact, last time I saw her, she said, "Dr. Hotze," and this has been years ago when she came in, sometime around 2010, 2011, she said, "Thank you for giving me back my life." Well, we didn't give her back her life. She took charge of her health. She did a 180 and decided, look, I'm going down this path, and if I keep doing what I've been doing, I'm going to keep getting what I've been getting. And it's not getting any better. It's getting worse. And if if I'm going to be able to maintain my real estate firm and my good life with my husband, she had a great life, great family, great work, I have got to make some changes. I'm going to have to do a 180 and take charge of my health, and she did. So we're the health coach. She's the health athlete, and our job is to help train her and make recommendations like an athletic coach would to somebody who's training to get in the Olympics. Well, Peggy was in the health Olympics. We want her to get a gold medal. So we make recommendations. The heavy lifting, obviously, is going to be upon Peggy, and it was, and she followed everything to a T. She did well, and she slowly weaned off her antidepressants and her other drugs. So she became drug-free, got her energy back because the thyroid hormone and the natural desiccated thyroid helped her cells produce energy. We balanced out her female hormones and put her on and helped support her adrenal gland, got her on vitamins and minerals and nutrients to detoxify her. And she got a little exercise program, and she did great. Now, she is one of literally tens of millions of women that have the same symptoms and have been through the same merry-go-round, which is really not very merry, the drug merry-go-round. And what we have in America is polypharmacy. So doctors are trained not so much to listen anymore to clinical symptoms, but to rely almost exclusively on blood tests to determine what your symptoms are. And routinely, hormone levels are not a good way to determine a person's hormonal need or hormonal balance. One reason is in women, the sex hormones fluctuate from day to day during the cycle. So they can be the ranges can be very wide. In the thyroid hormone levels, the lab determines what's normal by saying wherever 95% of the people fall, we call that the range from high to low. Wherever you fall, if you're in the 95, if you fall where 95% of the people fall, we're going to call you normal.
And yet you could be in that lower part of that 95%
that's right.
and be feeling miserable.
You could have had optimal levels of thyroid in your cells when you're younger, but now you got low levels and you feel terrible. The thyroid has declined 50% and you're producing 50% less energy. But the doctor says it's in the normal range, so it can't be your thyroid. So he wants to treat you for depression or a host of other things with pharmaceutical drugs. We're going to come back and we're going to talk. I'm going to ask you some questions when I come back to see if this reflects your situation.
Are you feeling tired? Are you feeling a lot of the symptoms that Dr. Hotze's been talking about? And do you feel like you've been ignored by conventional medicine and worse, been put on a lot of pharmaceutical drugs that you don't need? Then give us a call, 281-698-8698, 281-698-8698. You are listening to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. Please stay tuned.
Now back to the Wellness Revolution. Here's your host, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Welcome back to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution, where we are on a mission to help you achieve health and wellness naturally. And if you want to do a 180 and take charge of your health, then you can give us a call at 281-698-8698. It's 281-698-8698. And here is Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Thank you so very much, Stacy. Stacy Banfield. She has a face for TV and a voice for radio, and now that we have Facebook Live, you've got both.
Oh, gosh.
She's a wonderful she's a beautiful talking head. That's what we need to have to cover me. I've got a face for radio. Now they got me on Facebook Live. I don't know. There's nothing that a good facelift wouldn't solve. That's what I'm thinking.
That's so catchy.
I know it. For me, I'm talking about me. I could use that in the New York Minute. I've been threatened.
I mean, I can just see that on a T-shirt.
I've been even told by my pastor
Right.
that I needed to have some things done to my face. You
did?
You know it's bad when your pastor says, "I think you need a facelift."
That is swell.
Oh, gee. I mean, how many times?
God has blessed you with a great sense of humor.
I'm sure he doesn't say that to the ladies in the congregation. But
No, I'm sure that's
that would
right.
not. You would do that. But he said that to me. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Well, thank you, sir.
He knows you've got a thick skin.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. We talked about polypharmacy with Peggy. We've been talking about Peggy's story. Now, she had a low thyroid condition, had been treated with since a teenager with synthetic thyroid medication, had a hysterectomy, got put on some Premarin, which compounded her problems. Her doctor said it wasn't her thyroid. She wanted it bumped up. He wouldn't do it. Ended up putting her on a host of medication. When we saw Peggy, Peggy was on 9 different drugs besides her synthetic thyroid. Dr. Sheridan saw her, and she came in after she had seen a plethora, a pot full of doctors, all who gave her more drugs every time she walked in. And she'd gone to heck in a handbasket and said, you know what? You're my last resort. If you guys can't help me, I don't know what I'm going to do. Life is not worth going on any longer. I'm feeling so bad. And she felt worse on the treatment with the drugs. So the old adage, sometimes the treatment's worse than the disease is true. And in this case, it was for her. So so we ended up putting her on natural thyroid hormones and natural female hormones. And we got her, supported her adrenal glands, got her on vitamins and minerals, good eating program. She was able to exercise. She turned her life around. She said, you gave me my life back. She's been a guest now for at least 7 or 8 years. And
I actually saw her about a month ago, and she looks terrific. She looks amazing.
So there are millions of people out there just like Peggy, and you may be one of those people that have just suffered through going to your doctor and him looking at you with kind of like, yeah, you poor gal, you just need an antidepressant. What does that tell you? He's telling you it's all in your head. And these antidepressants are dangerous. So we don't use that here. We get people who will naturally. I told you, I believe that everybody needs to have a coach, put you on a path of health and wellness naturally so you enjoy a better quality of life and coach you onto that path. And so you don't have to resort to all these pharmaceutical drugs. Well, let me just ask you some questions here. I want you to take a look and think. I want you to think of these questions I ask you. 1, is your health steadily deteriorating, yet your physician doesn't seem to be as concerned about it as you are? Have you visited your doctor and complained of extreme fatigue, weight gain, insomnia, mood swings, depressed moods, joint pain, muscle aches, brain fog, depressed mood, joint or muscle aches, cold sensitivity, loss of romantic moods and inclinations, hair loss or recurrent infections, only for him to look at you, make you feel like you're a hypochondriac? Has your doctor tested your thyroid and said, your lab values are within the normal range? Has your doctor ever told you that your symptoms are just a part of getting older? You're just getting older. All my patients feel this way when they get older. You're not supposed to feel well. Matter of fact, I had a fella that came in from Louisiana. I got him up on the program, male hormone, thyroid, got him on his vitamins and minerals, good eating program, and he felt great. He went to see a doctor and follow up in Louisiana, and she told him, at your age, you shouldn't be feeling that good. Get off that medication. You're not supposed to feel that way when you're this old. Now, can you imagine that? Doctors accept that as people get older, they should feel poorly. And if they feel well or try any natural remedies or natural treatments that make them feel well, they look at that askance like, well, that's just crazy. Why would you do that? And that's because doctors are trained to use pharmaceutical drugs to treat symptoms. And they focus on the symptoms rather than the underlying cause of the symptoms. If you address the underlying cause, the symptoms resolve. You may have 5, 6, 10 different symptoms. But if you treat the symptoms, you're going to be treated with a bunch of drugs. You're going to get sicker quicker. You're not going to feel good. I'll tell you that. I see it over and over. And you can probably nod your head in agreement. Isn't that right? Do you feel better all the drugs you're on taking now? Have you felt remarkably improved, full of energy, enthusiasm, vitality, full of stamina, got to get up and go? And raring to go every day when you get up in the morning, productive, enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, enjoy your church fellowship, enjoy your recreation. Are you just going and blowing? That's the way you feel?
That's so funny because that's how the pharmaceutical ads look. Like that's how you will feel on them, and it's the complete opposite. But if you go by the ads, that's what they're claiming.
And remember, I don't want to cast all the blame on the doctors. The doctors are trained that way, but they join insurance programs, and the insurance programs determine the treatment protocol that your doctor has to follow. And if he attempts to put you on a natural program of health and using natural remedies, guess what? He's cut out. he can't be on the insurance program anymore. So he's pretty much a slave to what the insurance protocol is. And unfortunately, the vast majority of physicians have bought into that system. And the ones I know complain to me vociferously, Doc, I wish they know I'm an activist. Why can't you go help us fight this? So, these insurance companies are killing us. It's just terrible. I just got a whole office full of girls that file insurance they never pay, and my income's going down, and I have to see more and more patients, and they tell me how to treat them, and then the hospitals want to buy me out. I just don't know what I'm going to do. Has your doctor handed you samples of antidepressants as if you were some psychiatric case? Have you begun to agree that maybe your doctor is right and the symptoms are in your head? Or do any of these things ring true with you? You've experienced this? If you have, then I've written a book. And I want to tell you what, I've written a book, several books. I want to tell you the book I want to offer you today is Hypothyroidism, Health and Happiness. Today only, if you call our office at 281-698-8698, I will give you a copy of this book. I'll give it to you. We'll send it to you. Do they have to pay for shipping or not?
Don't believe so, no.
We'll just ship it to you. You don't have to pay a dime. It's free. I want you to read this book, Hypothyroidism, Health and Happiness. The vast majority of you listening to this program probably have that disorder, and I want you to read the book. So I'll give it to you. All you have to do is call 281-698-8698, and it's yours. If you want to take charge of your health, you need to be educated. This is a good way to do it.
Absolutely. Very generous offer, Dr. Hotze. So, again, if you just call 281-698-8698, that's 281-698-8698. We'd be more than happy to send you a complimentary copy of Dr. Hotze's book, Hypothyroidism, Health and Happiness. And, yes, shipping would be included. So we are so glad that you all joined us today here at Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. Have a wonderful day out there and be blessed.
Information provided on this radio program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution radio program advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application of the recommendations from this radio program is at the listener